r/AskReddit by Reddit Stories. If you could ask Donald Trump one single question and get an absolutely straightforward honest answer, what would it be? What was the most shocking thing you learned as president? That Puerto Rico is an island. Great question. Straight to the point. A lot of us wonder about any classified whatevers. What I have learned is the most shocking thing to ever happen. More shocking than ever before. You might think you've been shocked before, but I am the biggest shocked person in America. What's the most shocking currently classified thing you learned as president? I'm not going to let this guy's lack of knowledge about publicly available info prevent me from hearing the juicy stuff. Forget trying to catch him in stupid political or personal bullshit. This guy is in the loop on serious government secrets. I mean, maybe. Probably. I guess it's possible everyone agreed not to tell him anything. That there is no actual cabinet in the meetings. Even though unusually he'd be compelled to tell the truth here, the response would still be the thing that Donald Trump personally found the most shocking. In other words, the opinion of a sociopath who's narcissistic, it's safe to assume to the point of being mentally unbalanced. It wouldn't surprise me if the response turned out to be some minor banality that wasn't that important, but shocked Trump personally because it involved him and his ego. I'd have suggested that it might involve finding out the truth of some people's contempt for him, but his narcissism and related cognitive dissonance would likely divert his mind from having to accept that sort of blow. Regardless, don't assume that you'd find out what you wanted, even if the US government is hiding some juicy secrets. There are Category 5 hurricanes. Now that I won the election, I actually have to do something? I thought the president just gave fake jobs to friends and had a good time for 4 years. That you can't inject people with disinfectant or UV light. Define learned. It is funny that you think Trump has learned anything as president, or ever is in his life. 2 in the pink, 1 in the stink. He'd probably say something like Democrats are so corrupt. I'm pretty sure he'd say the FBI wiretapping him then providing false evidence to the FISA courts to cover it up. Otherwise known as #Obamagate. Don't stare at the sun during eclipse, don't drink bleach. Prob would be highly classified and he would have to kill you after he tells you LOL. South Korea has a population of 38 million. That he is the president of the Virgin Islands. That shooting nukes into hurricanes is not a valid idea. How influential was that Obama joke, at the correspondence dinner, to you running? Was it personal? What was the joke? Whoa. One question, buddy. The top reply was 2 questions. If you saw Trump's face during that roasting, I'd say 100% then and there he declared war on Obama. That explains why, after winning office, he systematically went and worked to undo every piece of Obama's legacy. He was already scouting before Obama made the jokes. This is a waste of a question. As someone who doesn't like Trump at all, I don't think it was the big deal people make it out to be. Trump had done a lifetime of public appearances and been lambasted and lampooned endlessly. His only real concern is if the subject is about him. Beyond that, it's all business and all publicity. This is absolutely a jab at him, but I think it's true. You cannot hurt Donald Trump's feelings. He doesn't have any. Not having empathy for other people doesn't mean not having feelings. He absolutely does get triggered and does make political decisions out of pettiness. It's the difference between a narcissist and a sociopath. A narcissist is capable of empathy, they just have a hard time conceptualizing other people as fully human like themselves, so any empathy they may feel is blunted unless it can be made about themselves in some way. A sociopath is completely incapable of empathy but can sometimes fake it pretty well. I think he's a narcissist. He's capable of the full range of human emotions. He just can't fully conceive of others as fully human and worthy like himself. A calculating sociopath would realize some of his gaffes were things he shouldn't say, like I don't stand by anything or I think I'm much more humble than you would understand. A narcissist wouldn't though, They see self-praise and such as simply stating the truth that everyone can see. A sociopath is capable of empathy too, just not effective empathy. Right, but that's a lot more calculating and tends to keep sociopaths from making the types of gaffes Trump makes. He's only capable of negative emotions. Anger, hate, fear. The only context he has for happy is a double negative emotions about people, not Donald Trump. It's why all his jokes are insults and mockeries. It's why his wives and children are business transactions. He is negativity in a bipedal shell. I think he's capable of the normal spectrum of human emotions, and his issue is that he's incapable of seeing other people as equivalent to himself. You don't feel as much remorse if you hurt a video game NPC as you would if you hurt an actual human. That's because you conceptualize the other human as actually being human like yourself. You can even kind of empathize with an NPC, but it's not really strong empathy and more just kinda entertaining the notion that they're real. If you try really hard you might even feel some bit of connection with an NPC. Not nearly as much as with a real relationship with a real person, but you can probably still feel this. That's narcissism. He sees people the way normal people see NPCs. He can form narcissistic bonds with them the same way you might be able to bond with an NPC. He's the only player in the game that is his universe, everyone else is just a supporting character. He did, but he mentioned running as far back as the 80s. This night might have been a factor in running, but it is a wild extrapolation to assume this was the night that drove him to run. Plus, he mentioned the idea of running for president long time ago. I don't know if he was serious then, but he had said that time to time. He also once said Hillary is a wonderful woman. Trump was also a Democrat some time ago. He flips and flops as it suits him. I'm a bit young to remember firsthand, but hasn't that idea been bandied about since the 1980s? Though he decided not to throw his hat in the ring for that election, I remember him making noise about running in 2012. He's publicly considered running for the first time, as Republican, for the 1988 election, although he didn't end up running back then. He actually ran a campaign in 2000 for the nomination for the Reform Party, but he abandoned that as that party was falling apart, although he did win the few primaries he entered. After that he considered running in 2012 but didn't, and then of course 2016 happened. I think there is also a difference between younger celebrity buffoon Trump, and older, angrier, more bitter Trump. His skin really has thinned over the years. He was always remarkably thin-skinned, it just never had such international consequences before. Spy magazine was the first to call him Tiny Hands. He would send the editor pictures of himself pointing out his hands, which he insisted were normal-sized. That dig about his hands has upset him for decades now. And also turned orange. Geez, you think unending, baseless, and false accusations that he's a traitor, from people who actually are traitors, parroted by a lapdog press, and repeated non-stop on social media, might have gotten under his skin a tad. Then you can add in the attacks on his family, especially Barron. Don't remember anyone in the press going off on Chelsea, or Obama's spawn, but Trump's whole family is fair game, apparently. It's all rules for thee, but not for me, and I can understand why he's sick of it. Don't remember anyone in the press going off on Chelsea. Don't remember anyone in the press going off on Chelsea, or Obama's spawn. It must be frightening to forget bits and parts of history. It's almost like he's being intellectually dishonest. Found the QAnon incel. LOL. It's all rules for thee, but not for me. The irony of throwing this out as a defense for Trump. Obama's spawn. Plenty of people went after the Obama children, and calling them spawn is doing so yourself implicitly. Trump is infamous for replying to negative press. He would cut out the article, write a diatribe on it in Sharpa, and post it back to the publication. Doing this didn't bring him any extra publicity, he takes things deeply personally. He certainly has always been thin-skinned and narcissistic, and it's widely acknowledged. So the whole thing about his ugly hands comes from a spy article in like the 80s. The author called him a short-fingered vulgarian, i.e. a cheap trashy bastard. It's just an expression and has nothing to do with the size of his hands. For decades after that, Trump would send pictures of himself to the author, who had retired, with his hands circled in gold sharpie. Thin skin doesn't even begin to cover it. He's severely unhinged. I think it was in Spy magazine. They used to call him a short-fingered vulgarian. Made a very funny cartoon about him once too. You're right. The guy went on to edit Vanity Fair afterwards, and Vanity Fair wrote about the feud, but the original comment came from Spy. I'll edit. Marco hit my hands, I can't believe it. Look at these hands, do they look small? And he insinuated if my hands are small, something else must be small. I assure you there's no problem. The crowd died of laughter. This was the beginning of the circus, LOL. Trump's son Barron is named after Trump's alter ego, John Barron. Used since the 80s. John Barron would call publications bragging about how great Donald Trump was. It was Donald himself doing it. Trump also used John Miller and David Dennison. He even pretended to be women. Caroline Gallego. Here is what she had to say about Trump in a 1992 letter to New York Magazine. I do not believe any man in America gets more calls from women wanting to see him, meet him, or go out with him. The most beautiful women, the most successful women, all women love Donald Trump. Almost rolled my eyes out of my skull. This is funny for many reasons, but the one that sticks out to me right now is the fact that his speech pattern and voice are so distinctive. I cannot imagine what I would do if I picked up the phone and heard obviously Donald Trump bragging about Donald Trump in a strained high falsetto. I found an article suggesting he might have been named after Barron Hilton, but honestly I wouldn't put it after the Donald to name his son after his own alter ego. I think he takes every slight extremely personally. Unless you insult his hands. I forget who it was, but some guy said he commented that Trump's hands were small to Trump. For the next 40 years, Trump would send him an annual picture of his hands with the message they're not small. Trump may not have feelings, but he's insecure as humanly possible. He cares deeply about himself. He's the most insecure person I've ever seen. This is probably the wrongest thing I have ever read. George Conway's group intentionally jabbed at him with an advertisement, with the goal of an end result of having him explode because it's so predictable. And, as predicted, he exploded. He tweeted in fury like hundreds of times the next day. His tweets directly correlate to how many people have insulted his fragile ego that day. Your premise could not be more incorrect. He has the thinnest skin of any human alive. And the Obama roast was the single solitary moment in his life that inspires his fervent and vitriolic anti-Obama lifestyle and policy reversal. That day haunts him every day, he will never live it down. It controls every decision in his life. What do you mean he's more of a moody, sensitive little bitch than my 12-year-old niece? Nah, Trump is all feelings, no facts. And he is severely insecure. To be ridiculed by the president takes it to a higher level, Imo. But the president is just a loser who doesn't matter, right? That should roll right off his back. Watch the clip of him being booed at the baseball game. He looked miserable. There is a pretty big difference from a celebrity roast that is in good nature and Obama using that moment to embarrass Trump. Trump was clearly pushing the birther thing, and I get O's response. But it was a thing. You can tell by looking at him that it was a thing. It was a bigger deal because Obama said it. If it were anyone else, you're probably right, it wouldn't have made such an impact. But because our black Democratic president roasted him multiple times in front of the whole nation, I guarantee it got under Trump's skin in a unique sort of way. That's absolutely correct. He doesn't have any feelings, nor does he even care what people think of him or the things, lies, he says. Man face palming, medium light skin tone. You might be right, but I suspect that being thoroughly humiliated by an uppity dark-skinned man more powerful than him burned inside him. His tweet rages definitely indicate his feelings get hurt all the time. All of his emotions may be superficial, but he has them. If you tell him he's not as rich as he says he is and laugh, a flame is lit in the tiny heart of his. Definitely agree. I'm sure I've seen him on that Roast Me show or wherever it was called. You wouldn't go on there if you were thin-skinned. He's a narcissist, every single thing that happens is about him, and he's the only person that matters. He doesn't have feelings about other people, aside from rage, if they ever disagree with anything he does or says. But his entire worldview is threatened when his perception of himself is threatened. If he didn't care about what other people had to say about him, he wouldn't constantly be throwing Twitter tantrums, and making personal attacks on reporters that ask questions he thinks don't make him look good. He is the most sensitive POS we have ever seen in public. You are fake news. The most persecuted president in history doesn't get his feelings hurt? I agree Donald Trump has been dreaming of the White House for ages. This wasn't his first attempt at running, but he gets his feelings hurt very easily. In one of the earlier seasons of The Apprentice, he asks the contestants if he would make a good president of the United States, and then fired anyone who said no. I know some people are going to say that was a good choice because you should know to suck up to your boss if you want to succeed, but that only works if you want to succeed as a sycophant. If you want to succeed as an actual leader, you should be honest and have integrity. But Trump is only interested in collecting people who suck up to him, so yeah, that's a good calling question for him in particular, a fucking monster baby. I had no clue he was roaster in 2011 by Obama. Perhaps it was in response to all of the birther bullshit. Either way, that would be one hell of a story. This Obama son of a bitch decided to roast me, talking about how I haven't done shit my entire life. I'll show him, and he shows him. If Trump wins again, I think the left is just going to lose their minds at the impossibility of it all. He tried running years prior to that. He was at the very least, feeling it out. I'm not sure if this is when he claimed to be a Democrat or not though. Found this. So it was after he was a Democrat. Political career: he registered as a Republican in Manhattan in 1987, switched to the Reform Party in 1999, the Democratic Party in 2001, and back to the Republican Party in 2009. Trump's face that night says so much. I'm have a strong but unfounded hunch that we start of it all. Obama isn't very funny. Literally 2 questions there, LOL. To be honest, the joke came off as very personal to me, like isn't the correspondence dinner not meant to be acted out like Ricky Gervais does? Bill Burr has a great take on it. The part about the dinner starts like 2 minutes in. Came here to say that? That's 2 questions. Don't be greedy. Oh shit. This question is way better than the one I had. Yeah, this question is my answer. Hey, you get 1 single question. There's another parallel universe out there where Obama doesn't make that joke and Trump's policy priorities are different. A Bambagate. Haha. That really is the ultimate fuck you, I'll prove you wrong that I can remember. r/thanks Obama. That's 2 questions. Trump had run for office previously IIRC. That were 2 questions. That's 2 questions. That's 2 questions bros. Thanks Obama. That's 2 questions. You're fired. That was the moment the timeline shifted. I sense you already know the answer to that. Who wouldn't take a low blow like that personally? Come on dude. That's 2 questions, nice try. But that's 2 questions. What was the joke? He has been running in every election for years up to that point, and I'm sure he was going to try again. Without this incident, Trump wouldn't be the president. Oh, I 100% believe Trump getting roasted by Obama is like 85% of the reason why he ran. I think he expected to lose, then he was going to start his Trump TV that would be even more right-wing than Fox News. Trump is super into conspiracies. He used to call into Alex Jones' radio show at least once a week and talk about the deep state and how the water is making the front gay. I have this idea the answer would be no. I wanted a raise from NBC, or whatever fucking channel carried The Apprentice. I never thought this would happen. This would be a good one. I'd like to know this. If this is true, it really says something. It's been 10 years. Guy really holds a grudge. Probably coincidental, he's run or tried to many times. Wow, 150 responses and not one directly responded to you that Trump actually talked about running for president and had an exploratory committee in the 80s, ran as a Reform Party candidate for the nomination in 2000, and considered running in 2012. Maybe that roast emboldened him, but he wanted the presidency for decades. That's two. This could be the reason he decided to run and undo all Obama's accomplishments. It's called narcissistic injury. Running for president was his way of saying, fuck you, watch me. You can see it in his face. Crazy. Later that night/next morning Obama would announce the death of bin Laden. He knew what was happening when making all these jokes. My favorite was from Seth Meyers. Donald Trump says he'll run for prey as a Republican. I thought he's was gonna run as a joke. Thanks Seth. I believe this was pivotal in Trump's decision to run, to completely erase President Obama's legacy. It sucks. Because Obama did some good. Not all good, but some. And that's more than can be said about our current administration. I was very skeptical of Obama's election in 2008, and thought we'd be in for some tough socialist agendas. It turns out, he left the country on solid economic footing, with the world's admiration and respect. One thing that didn't help this country, however, was that he would call out the Republicans for their non-cooperation and obstruction. As correct as he may have been, that created a division. A division that may have given us what we have now. That's not how you win friends and influence people. He did a lot more things right than he did wrong, IMHO. Bruh, that's not a single question, that's two. This comment got more upvotes than the post LMAO. That's two questions. This is a great one. And as much you may hate Trump, he answered the call. This whole thing was just one big joke. Finally. Everything makes so much more sense now. Good joke Obama, very funny. Ha. Ha. Okay, joke's over, can we have our real president back now? Obama. Where are you? He's a narcissist. Just the fact that he was laughed at all was enough to earn his everlasting rage. Not like he wasn't asking for it by being the arch-birther. These are two questions, you're out. Oh, you mean the joke that made him president? LOL. Edit, it's early. Probably very, since the next day he trademarked his slogan. I would ask the same. Trump ran for president before that and had talked about doing so repeatedly for years. His run wasn't some sudden new thing for him. That's two questions. It wasn't. Trump ran to use it as leverage to demand more money for his TV show as he found out he was getting paid less. Then along came the worst candidate in human history, Hillary Clinton, and handed him the White House. Do you really want to be president? That's similar to mine. Do you even want a second term? I honestly believe that when he entered the race, he had no intention of becoming president, it was just an ego exercise. At some point, as his support inexplicably grew, he found that he was in over his head, with no way to stop the wheels that were carrying him beyond where he wanted to go. I think that when he wakes up every day, he regrets getting involved in politics, and all he can do is keep stumbling along, with his handlers and funders and apologists pushing him forward. This doesn't give me a whole lot of sympathy for him, but it does make me think of him less as a purely evil megalomaniac and more as someone who was too incompetent to avoid becoming president or to figure out how to do it right once he got there. Edit, let me respond to the two most common replies to this post. I've never watched South Park, but I'm not surprised that those writers had a similar theory. If he doesn't like the job, why hasn't he resigned / why is he running again? I don't know specifics, but I imagine the cabal that got him elected and is enjoying running the country, through him, can be quite persuasive. I believe he wanted to lose a close race to Hillary, cry foul, then capitalize on that outrage monetarily somehow. Trump TV was a rumored option. This is the moment he was announced to have won the election. Trump is just. Yeah, not exactly what one would expect to be the reaction of a winner of a pretty close and controversial campaign season. I personally would hate to be president. It's such a stressful job, and no matter what you do, about half of the country doesn't like you. Maybe he does now. But on that day, back in 2016, as he walked down the stairs to hold his victory speech, that was not a triumphant winner we saw. That was the look of a man scared out of his socks. This was not the way it was supposed to go, and he had no idea about what to do next. He had already been complaining on Twitter for a couple of hours about how unfair it was that Hillary was winning, when it dawned on him that he just might win. A couple decades ago he said that he hopes that he never has to run for president, because if he does, then that would mean America was in trouble. If you've seen the video of the winning moment, he looks absolutely horrified. So, no, he didn't want this. I would say yes. How does a man in his 70s deal with all the pressure of the office, this pandemic, and attacked by the media 24/7 and not just give up? I'm still convinced that it was a publicity stunt that went horribly, horribly right. He said many years prior to 2016 that he would never want to be president, and that he only would if he had to. And he said during the 2016 campaign that he could have lived his life of luxury instead of taking all of these slings and arrows for the American people. He probably has an agenda, like any other politician ever, but I doubt he actually likes being the president. He only wanted the prestige and power to enrich himself. He already had his reason for losing speech / reason already. Even if you like Trump, you can clearly see he hates the job. I'd go one step further and ask if he voted for Clinton. He loves campaigning, he's done it throughout his presidency. That's all he wants. Like most bullies, they like to say a lot of shit but won't back it up. I believe he did. There are some old interviews with Oprah where he says he would consider running for president if things got bad. Probably yes. You can see him voicing his frustration with politicians for a very long time now. If you watched his past interviews, you would see how he used to be coherent and composed. Not that he can't be incoherent now, because as we know, age can lead to cognitive decline. He has after all been politically opinionated on social media for a long time now. And I don't think he engineered the birther movement purely out of spite. Also, he said in one interview that he hated politics because it's a mean career. But if you're thinking that means he didn't actually wish to be president, you're probably not entirely wrong. But since 2016, him being mean would probably be an indication that he has been doing what he thinks he has to do. I know that sounds like I'm defending him, but the fact that someone is pretending to be mean for such a long haul doesn't make him any less mean. He probably isn't even that mean, but has only become such, as a result of believing that he needed to be ruthless to be successful, such that he has become what he believes. In any case, I don't see why anyone would think he didn't want to be a president. The only alternative is that he was running as a joke, but that doesn't sound parsimonious. Perhaps you're thinking he has selfish intent and that he wished to use the position to profit himself, but do you really need to choose one or the other? It's, after all, one of the most powerful positions. That combined with his wealth, well, he could do untold things. But that remains a speculation. So, to answer the question, simply put, very likely he did. P.S. My NSFOZID has a fair point too. I think that in one of the first chapters of Fire and Rage it was said that no one believed that they could win and just took it as a publicity stunt. When he eventually did win, everyone was shocked, and within an hour he convinced himself that he was going to be president and that everything was going great. I don't know exactly if that's true because that book gave me a headache and I don't know much about American politics. Which is why I only read the first few chapters. I swear I'm not making this up, just too lazy to find it. But after becoming president, during an interview on stage, he was asked if he had regrets and he said, I'm guessing half jokingly at best, becoming president. Slap a Y in front of that one. I'm pretty sure he likes being president but hates doing the work. If you look at this footage from election night, I think it's clear that he's having immediate second thoughts. This one, he's already answered. This is one question I think he actually answered with sincerity, without even thinking. I heard it referred to as the dog that caught the car. I feel like it was a bet that he made. Based on that photo of him right after it was announced he won, I still believe he didn't want it. He wanted the attention and book/media that comes with it without all the hard work. I am fairly confident at this point that answer is no. But either is staying for ego reasons or has such a big ego that he thinks he's doing a 10/10 job. It reminds me of when Joe Exotic was running for president. That part when he turns to his campaign manager and is like, wait, what are we gonna do if I win? It's like that, except Trump actually did win. I think that one South Park episode summed it up real good. I think he really didn't think he was going to get that far, lol. I have already bought the condoms for the next term. You'd have to ask a more nuanced question. Of course he wants to be the president. But does he actually want the responsibility that comes with it or just the recognition? I wanted to be president for power and reputation. I don't really care about immigration and getting people jobs. Doesn't apply to me. In the same token, did you ever actually want this? He wanted to be president, but he didn't want to do president. This can be answered with a yes or no. Instead, begin with how, why, what, when, etc. Open question is important. I've heard some people think he was being shitty on purpose to get Hillary elected for whatever reason. I doubt that's true, but I think that by the time he won he didn't even want to be president anymore, but he's got so much support it's either an ego thing or he's being pushed to. Can we ask Melania something similar? I remember photos from the early time of being First Lady where she absolutely looks like she hates him for all that, more than probably before. I guess they never had a dream marriage and went on most days separate ways anyway, so suddenly getting pulled into the camera lights, which he seemingly loves so much, was probably one of her nightmares. At least it would be one of mine. What's she's up to currently anyway? Haven't heard much from her. Sean Spicer was on Jimmy Kimmel maybe 6 months ago and he was asked this direct question. Does Trump want to be president? And there was no hemming or hawing or well yes, but. He just unequivocally said that yes, he does want to be president. Of course, otherwise he would be put in prison. Not gonna lie, but of all the questions you could have asked, this one is pretty dumb. I'd appreciate it if you liked and subscribed.